before I do that, does anyone have any doubts or queries from previous classes, previous sessions? No? Okay. So are you all trying out this different exercises and the different practicals that we are seeing, and especially within DVWA? Are you doing that?
Yes, sir.
And again, I must mention one thing that in case you know that you're going to be not present today, like in case there's a prior commitment or you will not be able to make it to class, try to inform prior to that, so that I'll be aware in advance. So once this boots up, we'll just continue with our DVW, and we just have one kind of SQL injection to look through. After that, this web application hacking will be completed. this off. Now try again. Okay, so we were at SQL injection, and we had covered the medium level. Now coming to high, we go back to SQL injection, and it says click here to change your ID. So let's click here, see what happens. Now simply it's showing up on another page for us, and when I enter an ID, simply submit, and the result is being shown here. Now let's try our previous payload, the first one that we used, 1 or 1 is equal to 1. Let's see if that works. It is not working here. Okay, let's see whether making a small change, adding an afterthought, whether that makes a difference. Even that is not making any difference. Sometimes you need to keep trying this until you find something that sticks. In this case, let's see whether this works. No. Okay, let's try spaces. So this is what finally worked. Single quote after 1 or 1 is equal to 1. So instead of doing the numerical, instead of doing the character comparison here, we are simply comparing the number. 1 is equal to 1. So sometimes you need to play around with these things to see what will work. But again, we are able to perform the injection here. And similarly, we'll be able to do other things as well, like 1 union select 1 double at the rate version, and so we have gotten the database version here. Okay, just a minute. this is now if I take a look at the source code in this case, this is the SQL query, SQL statement that's running. Select first name, last name from users where user ID is equal to whatever input we are giving. And after that, there is this limit one. Now this limit one tells our database server to only show one result, because that's the intended functionality of this thing, that it should only be showing the name corresponding to whatever user ID has been selected. So limit one makes sense in that. Limit one makes sense in that situation. But if you want to perform SQL injection, we want to carry, if you want to see multiple rows of data in our results, so we need to use that octathought to comment out the rest of the SQL statement so that the limit one part does not get executed. That's why we need to use this. Now this is your SQL injection, basic normal SQL injection, and source. Similarly, you can run other statements that we saw as well yesterday. The whole thing that we saw, union select. So this is going to give you the table name. Table names, actually different tables present. Now since we have the original statement is select first name and last name where users from users where user ID is equal to 1, union select this. So for the first entry we'll get this admin, which is the detail for the first user. I can copy this thing. I can try running it without the one at the beginning. So delete this. So now we don't get that first entry. Yeah, any questions?
Sir, in my Kali Linux, I'm not able to open any site. Even Google is not able.
Google is not opening the. I think we're getting the same error that you used to get previously. With your
No,
whole
sir. It is giving different.
different what issue is it saying?
Software is preventing Firefox from safely connecting to this site.
What is something is preventing?
Yes, software is preventing
Software,
Firefox.
okay.
Yeah.
Software is preventing Firefox from accessing this URL.
Yes. Google.com I did, but the link, but a secure connection could not be established.
Check whether you have burp disabled or
Yes,
enabled.
it's enabled, I guess. Yeah, intercept is on and it's enabled. You need to turn
Try
off.
turning it off and then try it again.
Okay. Yes. Now I am able to open
When you are using burp and intercept is on within burp, then all your requests will be intercepted by burp suite. Unless you manually tell it to forward or drop those packets, you will not be able to access anything else within that same browser. For other browsers, of course, it will work because they are not using that same proxy. Okay, so you're able to use now, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so yeah, this is the same command that we saw yesterday, just we're using it in a different way. We're just entering it here. So this is SQL injection, your normal SQL injection that you see. Next kind of thing that we are going to see is blind SQL injection. And why this is called blind SQL injection? Because previously, when we saw SQL injection, when I entered this semicolon, it gave me an error. Whenever I had any error in my syntax, it would explicitly tell me that this is the error. When I ran any query, it gave me the results. Okay, so if I used to run this, or 1 is equal to 1, okay, of course, error in syntax. Then error in syntax. Let's just use the previous syntax. Oh, okay, yeah, this is the error. 1 or 1 is equal to 1. So when I ran my SQL injection query, my SQL query, it used to show me all the results here. So all the results would be, all the results would be visible. In blind SQL injection, you're not able to actively see any results. Okay, let's see how this is working. It's asking for a user ID. Let's enter user ID 2 and click on submit. Now it's not showing you the details for the user. It's just saying that the user ID exists within this database. So it's not showing me anything else about the user, any details, any columns, rows, anything. It's just telling me that the user ID is present. The same thing will happen for any user ID up to 5, because we've seen there's 5 users. If I enter anything more than that, 6, 7, 8, anything, then user ID is missing from the database. That is what it's showing us here. Now, blind SQL injection works differently than the previous kind of SQL injection that we have seen. And it does not show you any error message. It's not, it's not going to show you any results directly, but you can gain information about the database through blind SQL injection. And basically, blind SQL injection involves asking queries to the database where it will return some form of answer in a true or false response. By observing this response, we can infer some information. And I'll talk about what kind of information that is in just a moment. Now, there are two kinds of blind SQL injection. The first one is Boolean based. So, like I said, based on a true or false response, we infer some information from the database. Okay, just give me one couple of minutes. I'll come back and I'll continue with this blind SQL injection. Just give me one. Okay, so let's continue. Now to demonstrate the kind of queries we can run, let's again try this one single code. Now I'm going to give it a query which I know is always true. So one, and we used or in our previous kind of attacks, but now we are going to use and in order to make sure that, you know, in order to be very particular about the answer that we are getting. See, with or what happens is it's going to select based on the results of the where clause. In the where clause, we need to make it so that every time that where clause runs, it's true for every row. So at least one of those conditions has to always be true. But in blind SQL injection, we rely on the server to tell us what the output is, to tell us whether the condition we have run is true or not. So let's first test that by providing a condition that will always be true. And 1 is equal to 1, and we add this octathorpe to comment out the rest of the things. Now and 1 is equal to 1. 1 will always be equal to 1, so this should always be true. And we get the response, we get a positive response that the user ID exists in the database. So when user ID is equal to 1 and 1 is equal to 1 is run, that means it's a true statement. There is a user ID with the name of 1 and our other part is true as well. Now let's see what happens when we provide it with a statement that we know is false. Now here we are just testing to check that okay, the database is giving us the intended kind of response. So and 1 is equal to 2. User ID is missing, so negative response. So the application, the server is database server is giving us the kind of response that we are expecting. 1 is equal to 2 will always be false. So we know that we purposefully gave it a wrong condition, a false condition, to test that okay, it's working according to our expectation or not. So we have tested it, and if we give it a statement that we know is false, then we can figure that out by this negative response. Because the other statements that I'm going to give it, now I don't know whether they are true or false. I'm relying on the response I get to figure out whether these are true or false statements. So let's see what we are going to do. Now let's try to figure out the number of columns that are specified in the underlying query. So 1 and okay, not and, in this case maybe 1 union select. Now union did not need to be capital, I just had caps lock on. 1 union select 1. So this is 1, in this case 1 is the column number. So if this statement runs, that means that the database has only one column. Let's just use this. The query has only one column, sorry, not the database. User ID is missing, that's a negative response. That means the number of columns is greater than 1. Again, let's try union select 1. In this case, okay, union select 1 comma 2. This would be true in case there are two columns in the database in the query, in this user ID query that is preceding here. Submit. Now it says user ID exists, so this is a positive response. So we know that there are two columns which are a part of this query. So this gives us some information for running future queries. So we know that whatever union select we are running, we need to run it with two columns. We need to have two columns for that. Now, in the previous kind of SQL injection, we found the database version by asking for the version variable by double at the rate version. But that will not be possible here because we are not directly getting the answer. So regardless of what the version is, it is not going to tell us the direct answer anyway. So we'll have to use something else. Let's see what that something else is. And one, again we'll use and here, and there is a substring function that is present. Now what substring does, okay, this is not just limited to SQL. This is also a function present in other programming languages like Java. So substring basically takes a string, an alphanumerical set of characters, and takes out a small part, takes out a small chunk of it according to the parameters that we specify. So use the substring function. Now, what do we want to present as the input for this? The version part. Which character do we want to start our substring from? First character. How many characters do we want to take? Just one, because I just want to, in this case, I just want to see what the first character of the version is. Earlier, we got the entire version just by one command. That would not be possible now. Now we'll have to figure out each character one by one. And this is, of course, going to take a longer time than what we did previously in the previous time. So blind SQL injection is a little more difficult to do and more time consuming, but in a lot of cases, that's the only option because normal SQL injection won't work. So substring version 1 is equal to 1 is equal to now the value that you want to compare it with. So let's say I try to compare it with 1, see whether the first character of the version number is 1 or not. Submit, and it says user ID exists or not. So the first character of the version is 1. Now this could be 1 point something, 10 point something, 100 point something, whatever. We don't know that yet. Just we know that the first character is 1. Now for the second character. 1 add substring. Okay, I'm just using the previously written query, just making one small change. Instead of 1 in the second column, we'll use 2 because now we want to consider the second character in the version. Now we are checking whether that is equal to 1 or not. Submit. User ID is missing, negative response. So the second character is not 1. We know that much now. Whether it's 2, again negative response. Now you'll have to keep trying this until you reach the correct value. So the correct value in our case we already know is 0. So let's just test. Okay, not the first character, the second character, and submit. So it says user ID exists in the database. That means the second character is 0. So version is something like 10 point, probably something like that. And if you want to even go even further, of course, you can definitely try that. The third character, and that is a dot in our case. So user ID exists, positive response, that means our statement is true. So the third character is dot, so 10 point something is the version number, and so on. You continue just doing this until you reach the end, until you figure out the exact version. So blind SQL injection is more time consuming, it's more difficult. Let me check something. One and what was the version again? So, 7. It's actually much longer than that. Okay, I'll do this on my own later on. Now let's try to figure out the name of the database that's being used. First, let's try figuring out its length, the length of the name of the database, not the size of the database name, just the length of the database name. So again, one, and in this case, this length database. So you need to be familiar with the syntax and stuff. Otherwise, I know. You need to be very particular about the syntax and stuff. Otherwise, it will give you errors. And with blind SQL injection, you can't even figure out whether your statement is false or you have written it incorrectly. So you need to be very careful there. Length database is equal to 2. So we are asking whether the length of the database variable, or this is holding the database name. So we are saying whether it's 2 characters long or it's even longer. 2 characters long or no? Yes or no? So it's telling us no. Let's try again. Whether it's 4 characters. I'm taking 2 and 4 just as examples. There's no guarantee that you'll find it within these values. In this case, it says, okay, true. User ID exists in the database. So it's a true condition. That means the name of the database is 4 characters long. Now, in our case, we know that's true because the name of the database is DBWA. But in an actual SQL injection situation, you won't be aware of that beforehand. Now, this is all important information that we are gaining about the database. So now if you want to figure out the name of the database, what you do is similar to what we did previously, and substring. There needs to be parenthesis here, substring database one. Now you're checking whether the first character is, okay, let's just start from A. First character is A or not. I'm going to actually copy this first so I can repeat this for other characters. Let me just check once. It's correct. So syntax is fine. User ID is missing, so the first character in the database name is not A. We know that it's DBWA, so just let's go ahead and verify that. D is the first character. Yes, the first character. Second character is V. That's true as well. Third character should be W. Again, bullseye. And fourth character should be A. So DVWA. That's the name of our database. Now this is a small name. DBWA is 4 characters long. If you had an even longer name for the database, you would need to do a much longer, you need to spend a much longer time doing this. So this was Boolean based blind SQL injection. Now the second kind is time based. In time based SQL injection, what you do is you specify a time delay as part of your SQL queries. And if your query is true, then you will know that because that time delay will activate. Now to check whether your application is vulnerable to time based SQL injection, what we are going to do is use this one again as part of the statement. And now we are going to use the sleep method. Sleep, let's say 10, and submit. Now notice that there's a delay and your browser is waiting to get the response. So there was a 10-second delay. This user ID is missing. This does not matter in this case. We're just looking for the time delay. So now we know that this server, this web application, it is vulnerable to time-based SQL injection because we mentioned a sleep, a time delay of 10 seconds, and it followed that. So the sleep command worked here. So this is vulnerable to this time-based SQL injection. And in this case, what we're going to, okay, I'm going to give you another example. For this, there are two more concepts in SQL that you need to know about. One is this if function. Just let it load. So what this if function does is, this is similar to, I mean, this is not exactly the same regarding syntax and all, but this is similar to the if operator or that you see in other programming languages as well. So what this will do, if based on a condition, whether it's true or false, if it's true, it's going to return the first parameter as output, and if not, then it's going to return the second one if the condition specified here is false. So 500 less than 1000, this is going to return yes. Okay, and there is another concept here involved, which is called like SQL like operator. This is used for pattern comparison, and there are two wildcards involved. The percent sign represents any number of characters. The underscore sign represents a single character. This will become clear when we talk about the examples here. So the syntax would be select column names from table name where column like pattern. So in this table that they have this customer name table column. From this table, the customer name column is where we are putting the condition. So it would be something like select name or ID from table where customer name like, and you'll specify some condition here. So like in this case is A followed by a percentage sign. That means that value should start with A, and it could, after A there could be anything. It could just be simply A alone, single character A, or any number of characters followed by A. Sorry, any number of characters after A. Any number of characters following A, not followed by A. Sorry. Then, if you're putting the percent sign in front, that would find any value that ends with A. Similarly, If you put something in between two percentage signs, that means this is a part of that value. It may be at the beginning, it may be at the end, it may be in the middle, wherever it may be, it has to be a part somehow. If you put an underscore and then you put a character, now in this case underscore r would mean that in the first position there is some other character, in the second position you should always have r, and after that you can have either 0 or any number of characters. Similarly, in this case, a is the first character and there should be a second character. So this should includes values that are at least 2 characters long, and after that there could be any number of characters, but the minimum would be 2 in this case. And here they've added one more underscore, so 3 and so on. Now we are going to make use of this in our next SQL statement. So 1, and now I'm going to use if rate version. So the version variable we are using here, and what we are doing with that is we are going to specify a statement now. So if version like, let's say we know that the latest version is 10 point something, so that we use like 10 percentage sign. So this is the condition. Now if it's true, we want this to be executed. Sleep, let's say 15. So 15 seconds it will your response will get delayed by 15 seconds because the server will not respond within that time. Otherwise, just null, continue functioning like usual, and enclose this in parentheses, like can sleep to null, simply remove it by the two parentheses. This is incorrect. Just one is required. Submit. Now again, we are seeing that there is a delayed response because of the sleep that we mentioned. So that means the condition that I specified is true. What would be the case if this were false? And yeah, and is definitely required. And if version like, now let's give it a wrong version on purpose. So 9, sleep 10, and null. Let me just check the command again. Okay, this should be fine. Now in this case, we see that the response was not delayed. It did not sleep for 10 seconds. It immediately gave us the response. This means that the query that we specified, the condition that we specified there, that was false. So the version number does not start with 9, it starts with 10 based on the previous query that we ran, the one before the one we just ran. So that is true. Now this is how you use time-based SQL injection to figure out details about an application. Details about the database in your web application. This was low security. Let's move on to medium. And it's just the similar thing for both kinds of SQL injection, at least in DBW, low, medium, and high. This is going to be uh, without any input fields. So we'll just have to turn to Burp Suite. Loads. Next. Then we go to proxy. Intercept is on. We tell Firefox to use Burp. Submit. So this is the ID in our request. Now in Burp, it's better if you do this via the repeater. For this request, of course, just the one request, I can simply forward it. After that, I'll move on to repeater. So one single quote and one is equal to one. It says user ID is missing. Okay, we'll try it a little bit differently. We have it in repeater. In repeater, you'll see the response here itself. There's an option for render, but it does not always work. So in this case, it says user ID exists in the database. Sometimes this syntax can vary a little bit, but it's saying user ID exists. Now I can make any kind of changes I want here. For example, if I send this with 1 is equal to 2, I'll get the response here and I can analyze that, see whether I was successful in getting information or not. So user ID is missing as is the expected case when we compare 1 is equal to 2. So in repeater, you have the advantage that you don't have to repeatedly capture an intercept request. You can simply use repeater to send requests, analyze response, and make any kind of changes and just keep editing requests like that. So repeater is also a very nice tool in Burp Suite, and especially for these SQL injection kind of attacks, it's very good. So this was medium level, and again the same kind of thing that we did earlier, we'll be able to do that here just through Burp Suite. DWA security level 5. Now, again, this is similar to the high level for the normal SQL injection. Let's say to change your ID, here you're going to work 1 and 1 is equal to 1, submit. User ID exists in the database. So we are able to run queries similarly here as well. And our Octothorpe just serves to comment everything out after our initial query. So this symbol, it comments out everything after the query, because this is not where the query ends. After ID, there's the closing single quote, there's that there's the whole semicolon, there's that limit one part. We want to comment out all of that. We don't want anything of, we don't want that part to execute, so we use this to comment out the rest of the stuff. There's limit one here as well, but in this case limit one does not really matter because we're not really getting results on screen. We're just able to ask the database some questions in a true or false kind of format to figure out, to glean some information from the database. So that is how blind SQL injection works. Any questions at all from this, from SQL injection or blind SQL injection, or from the entirety of DBW? Yes, I'll do that, don't worry. Okay, who did not complete it? Yes, not that. Anything else from DBWA? Any other questions? Because this is, we have covered DBWA, we covered our web application hacking part. So after this, we will go on to the next chapter. So now we have like 4 or 5 topics left within the course. Burp suite tabs. Okay, let's see burp suite tabs. So these tabs are all these individual tabs that you see. These are, you could say, these are individual tools. With each of them has a different functionality within burp suite. The first thing you see is your dashboard. Now this is something that's not available to us because it's only something that's present in the pro version. When you run a scan with burp suite, that's only again available in the pro version. Then you'll see this kind of thing. And this is the event log that you see when it starts. It says proxy service started and other such information. Target is where it captures, when you start the proxy, this is where it captures your data. You can take a look at these responses and requests and responses, that is. You can mention the scope, so it will only then include whatever URLs are a part of the scope, whatever domains you have added in the scope section. Only those will be focused on. This is sitemap. Just if you have multiple websites currently, as soon as I started work, I've only been working on DBW and localhost. So only localhost is available. Otherwise, we would have seen whatever websites we visited. Why? this capturing was enabled. Let's say I also visit this MD5 online, or I go to Zoom 12Q. This is that zooming wallpaper that I showed you earlier. I hope you can see this. Okay, as I was saying, this okay, the screen is visible, right?
Yes, sir.
So the proxy, the intercept tab is something that we all know. We see all our captured requests here. HTTP history, again, just history for HTTP. WebSockets is, just for some reserved services, not for web pages and stuff. Here you have different options that you can configure. These are the intercept options that you only currently by default it says that only intercept those things which do not match GIF, JPG, PNG, CSS, JavaScript. So it's only intercepting HTML, PHP, those kind of requests. It's not capturing requests made for other kinds of resources. If you want, you can customize all of this, set your own custom parameters for intercepting requests and stuff. Intruder is something that is used for password cracking. We've seen this with the brute force module in DBWA. This is the target. You specify the IP and port. Here you specify what parameters you want to try and attack. This is where you mention your payloads or your word lists, whatever you want to use. Here you have other options to configure if you want to set any particular request headers or not. Repeater, like I mentioned in the blind SQL injection part, this is basically what it lets you do is send one request to repeater, and you can make any kind of modifications to those want, any kind of modifications that you want, and repeatedly send that request instead of just capturing it once and forwarding it. You send that request repeatedly, and each time as you make the changes to the request, you can analyze the changes in the response. So without repeater, what you would have to do is individually capture every request, turn intercept on, capture every request, and make changes, view it in the browser. That would be a lengthy process. It's more time consuming, actually. This is better than that. Simply make any kind of changes, repeatedly send that request, analyze the response that you get. Sequencer, now this is the tool that we used with weak session ID generation. We saw how it analyzes the session IDs and tells us different variables. Mainly what it tells us is whether those generated IDs have a good level of randomness or not. Decoder is okay. Decoder we have not really covered. It basically allows you to encode and decode different types of messages, different types of Yeah, messages basically. Yeah, what else? So let's say I have a base 64 string. Let's say I want to convert a string to base 64 format. I'll just write hello world. I'll encode as base 64. I could have done that here. It would have shown here. No, okay, no worries. So this is the encoded format of this. If I want to change this to HTML encoding, code as HTML. This is the format in HTML entity encoding. Or if I want to convert it into a URL format of encoding, then this would be it. So you can encode and decode different kinds of values here.
Even
Comparer is
hash is there.
hmm? No,
Hash.
no. This is not for hashing. Hashing and encoding are different things.
There is one down after encode as hash is there.
Which one?
Third combo box.
Third one. There's no hash here. This is plain
No,
URL
after
HTML.
not in a encode as. Decode
Decode
as,
as
encode as, and hash.
hash. Okay. Yeah, so you can convert to hash, but you cannot decode hashes. So that's a different functionality. And
Okay.
don't confuse encoding with hashing, because see, I have encoded hello world into URL encoding here. I've done that, but I can decode it if I want. Decode as plain. Okay, no, sorry, decode as URL. I need to tell it that this is URL encoding, and to use that to decode this. So it has decoded this for me. But if I convert this into hash, let's say I convert it into a SHA-1 hash. What is this? This should not be the case. Let's say try a SHA-256 hash. This is not the expected output. Okay, it's converted into hex. Just turn it to text. Okay, this is definitely not SHA-256. I think this feature might not be correctly implemented yet. This is most definitely not the hash of hello world. These are not the kind of characters you find in a hash. Okay. Let's try a different kind of hash. Let's say MD5. Maybe that works. Okay, there is some error with this, definitely. This is not how a hash is supposed to be. So encoding, decoding you can perform. Hashing, maybe. Don't use both for it. And encoding, decoding is different from hashing in the sense that if you encode hello world, like let's say if I encode this as base 64, this is the base 64, decode as base 64, I can easily get the decoded value. But that's not true for hashing. If I convert this into a hash, I cannot decode it, I cannot dehash it or anything. That's not possible. Once you have converted a value, once you have calculated the hash for it, there's no way to know what the hash value originally belongs to. Okay, that's how it works. But of course, with the help of rainbow tables and of course online websites that we have seen like MD5 Decrypt, they have a database of different words, different values along with their corresponding hashes. So of course that can be used, but there's again no guarantee that you'll be able to crack something like that. So that's something you have to keep in mind. And of course I'll expand on this when we reach the cryptography topic, so don't worry about that. Then you have the comparer. Comparer is used to perform a word by word comparison of two requests. Again, this is something that we saw within this DVWA What module did we see it in? Let me check. Yeah, within CSRF we saw this. Even in CSRF we saw the use of comparer. So it compares two different requests or responses, whatever you want, analyzes them, tells you what the changes are, what the differences are between the two. And these are the main tools when you talk about Burp Suite. Extender is simply, it's basically like you have add-ons in Firefox. Similarly, Extender adds different extensions to Burp Suite. So you can add other third-party extensions. You can code your own extensions for it, and whatever you want to add, you can do that here. There's also a store for this extensions. It's a lot of stuff here, so you can use that. So these are the different tabs in Burp. This is just different options. Nothing to see here. Mostly we don't need to change these. So that is it about Burp. Yeah, short revision sort of way. Anything else? Do you have any other doubts? Any other questions? Anyone? No? Okay. So yeah, if there is no other question, then we can end today's session here. The next topic I'll begin tomorrow. This is the end of web application hacking.